to our mid-January report, our
I know.
mid-January time to share. I got some feedback from last week. We were talking about accountability and personal relationships, and I just got some useful feedback. I've had several people say, I understood some stuff we've talked about for a long time, finally, by listening to John talk about it on the podcast.
Cool.
So just to give that feedback.
Okay.
And I was thinking about, I'm noticing it particularly in my church, people in my church are feeling very upset by what happened in Washington and the I don't know what it was, demonstration, riot in the Capitol. And I don't even dare go to Facebook and see what's going on there about it, but made me think about, last week we were talking about accountability and personal relationships, and it made me think about maybe having a conversation about accountability in our civic relationships, or maybe even in our collective relationships.
Yeah. Okay.
And to that end, I mentioned to you, I'm going to share a screen here for a second, and I want to just point out to those who are listening, there's a new book that's just come out, which I've started reading, called Healing Collective Trauma, Process for Integrating Our Intergenerational and Cultural Wounds, by Thomas Hubel. Hubel is from Austria, and he's got a background in medicine, as well as he spent a number of years in a focused spiritual practice. So he's seeking to explore the question, the relationship between the physiological basis of trauma, what actually happens in the brain, much as Bessel van der Kolk does in his book, The Body Keeps the Score. But also, unlike what van der Kolk does, he seeks to expand the insights into a conversation about spiritual trauma, or spiritual shortfall. Because as we've discussed here in this podcast, John, he too defines trauma as emotion which has been stymied or not been allowed to complete its course through the body, or has been violently altered, repressed, or otherwise not allowed to just naturally flow. So I thought it might be fun, useful to maybe just spend a few minutes or a whole hour talking about what we know, what we learn in our accountability practice that might help us be with the turbulence of our world. Because turbulence has been around since I was born, so it's really nothing new. But we do seem to go through cycles where things seem more acutely messed up, out of balance, out of kilter, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah.
So I'll just stop there and see if you have any thoughts to kick us off.
Well, the person that wrote that book referred to intergenerational trauma and cultural trauma. And it's my idea that the cultural trauma springs from the intergenerational or family dynamics. And there's an assumption of how it is based on our collective trauma. And then there's gradations, or in that continuum, people at different levels of awareness, compassion, ability to allow or witness or add a different kind of energy to the collective. Gandhi's statement about the turmoil that he was going through was be the change. That was his, I don't know if you call it an edict, but his suggestion. And what I've found is that the power in that is far greater than I could have imagined. And yet, as I've grown into it, the effectiveness of it, when I first started, was, what good's that going to do? And then having held this energy for a number of years, I see the difference that it's done based on my perception of where we're at in this polarization process. And my perception of it tells me everything I need to know about me and the difference between now and 15, 20 years ago. 15, 20 years ago, albeit I was still in recovery, I was adding to the polarity by holding resentment, bitterness, contempt, wanting to be right, not willing to listen. And now I'm in a place where I know I don't know, so the issue of being right's out the window, because there is no right. There's what is and what do I want. And the number of people I talk to at this level is increasing, and they're also talking to other people. So it's not linear. It's I'll say logarithmic, but like the 7 degrees of separation. So affecting the race consciousness or the cultural consciousness, I'm doing my part. And I'm only doing what I'm aware of, and I know that that awareness will deepen and broaden as I go through this process. And there's probably a whole lot of details I left out, or questions you might have.
Well, I think before we go there, it might be useful to share with somebody who's listening to this for the first time what we even mean by the collective consciousness.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
So I'll take a shot at it, and I'd love for your thoughts. But I think I've shared with people who've been following this podcast. So if you haven't heard this before, I studied in the work of Ken Wilber, who is called an integral philosopher. I've been studying his work for 25 years now. And in his work, what I learned is that we can conceptualize reality as having an individual and a collective component. And we can see that in the human being, that each of us appears and experiences in our consciousness that we're individualized humans, but there's also humanity as a whole, and we are both a part and part of the whole, or he calls that a holon, which is an Arthur Kessler word meaning a whole part. That is, I'm simultaneously a part of humanity and I'm a whole human being. So the collective dimension, the collective consciousness, is the consciousness that we have as a species that is very difficult to tap into directly. Partly, I think it's just a developmental stage where we just haven't developed to the point where we can tap into us thought or us awareness. We're all busy just trying to understand personal awareness and personal consciousness. And that's a lot of what accountability practice helps with. But it also opens the possibility of experiencing our collective energies. So what do we as a culture want? What do we as a society want? What do we want as a species? And so it's mostly subconscious, because there's no mechanism yet by which it could become conscious of itself, but that's partly what we're all working on, in my estimation. That by using accountability to create the life I want, I also use accountability to see where I end and we begin, and be willing then to start playing more consciously in that space. Those are some of my thoughts.
Yeah. In my personal struggle to find peace or wholeness, let me put it this way. before I started my recovery, my sphere of concern was myself, my truck, and my gun rack. And, you know, just stay the hell away. Now my sphere of concern is global, the planet, and every being on the planet. I have this belief I picked up along the way that it's everybody goes, everybody attains enlightenment, or everybody ascends, or everybody comes to love themselves. And if one person doesn't go, the collective doesn't go. Now, that's my personal belief and opinion, and it works for me. So my concern about other people's welfare is that they're of value to me. Instead of before, it was they were trying to take my stuff, or they wanted what I had, or I wanted what they had, and there was this adversarial feeling, thought about it. Now it's I revel in somebody's success. I feel when somebody is going through some heartache or pain. My goal is, well, the immediate goal is to get this information out to as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time. And what came to me when you were talking is that if there wasn't something in us, why would all the greats spend all their time giving us information about our well-being? Why do the Christians believe that Christ hung on the cross for all of us? Why would he do that if there wasn't something of value there or important to him? So you and I have struggled with this. How do we bring this to the group consciousness, or national world consciousness, and heal that and start that dialogue? And I think this is part of that intent that you and I have, is starting the dialogue about what's going on. I remember being in church and the minister talking about personal troubles and healing, and she referred to the collective consciousness has a belief about how it should be. That affects my process. So if I'm in the collective consciousness, there are certain things I believe can't happen that are impossible. Removing myself from the collective consciousness and expanding and believing that all things are possible actually adds to the collective consciousness. So me holding that space, that place, offers the opportunity for somebody else to see maybe envy or want, and then ask me or do their own search in wherever they do it. And there's no one search. Any search is an appropriate one for whoever's making it. So
another thing to note, if I could, John, is that the other question to ask ourselves, like the question that you asked about Jesus, the Christ, is why would we be created with a vagal nervous system that creates mirror neurons, whereby we can, at some kind of level, physiological / psychological level, see and experience something about the other person that resonates in some form of truth. There's something about the way humanity evolved as social beings, whereby we were all equipped with this drive to connect and understand each other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in a certain way, when we think about this common human structure in every single human being. When we're conceived, we develop, and this nervous system is created. In every single person, unless there's some really bizarre anomaly. This is just like everybody has one head, two hands, etc. The way the nervous system is developed is universal, and everyone's in. So there's another implication there about some collective unifying field, if you will, of our humanity that's actually comes out of our physiology. Because
Yes.
that little 2-cell creature, 4-cell creature, as that little zygote starts to develop after conception, is not yet ready to do that, but eventually evolves the capacity to do that. And it's something that we don't tend to pay attention to in our culture, in our society. And yet with books like this one from Hubel, there's more and more, like you were saying, there's more and more people engaged in this inquiry, this exploration, this conversation as time unfolds. It's as if Hubel talks about this in the book. It's as if there's a call from the future to which we are responding, a future in which these potentialities have become realized, and we're responding to them. There's something that got implanted in some of us to have an acuity to hear the future calling. I'm saying that as a poetic expression, because there is no such thing as the future. There's only the present. And yet, in our present experience, we feel called to participate in creating this kind of future. It's very fascinating, because it's like you said, it goes all the way back. Mystics have been doing this they've heard this call for millennia. This is nothing new.
One of the cultural race consciousness concepts that throw a monkey wrench into all this is that we're the evolved species, that we are the end result of human evolution. So we've reached our maximum capacity, and our ability to evolve further is hooked into the common sense. Well, why would I need, what am I going to get, 6 fingers? What else do I need to survive? And we're there. So this idea that we're the end result of evolution instead of we're in the process of evolving is a hindrance to people being curious or asking different questions or looking about what's this all about. And those mirror, the vagal nerve, mirror nerves, mirroring nerves, gives us the capacity for empathy or compassion, which the greats talk about. Like Buddha is compassion, Christ is love. The ability to go beyond ourselves into the whole, into the service of others. Christ was in service to everybody. In the 12 steps, they talk and teach that the end result is that we're in service to our fellow beings who are suffering from the same malady or the same issue, to be of service. And for me, that's the highest goal I can achieve. How can I be of service? That's right now, that's my final question. And there's been a lot of question and intents to lead up to that. And I'm in that place. How can I be of service? And my capacity to reach people is growing. Every moment it gets bigger, and there's more people on board, more people I can talk to at this level. And people are getting to this level quicker. Ones I've worked with, they seem to like jump in, and there's this like a quickening happening, and that quickening speaks to the race consciousness as a whole. I would like to be in a conversation where we're all at the level of a Christ, and then see what dilemma faces us. Because I don't believe it's going to be all like creams and joy and like cream cheese. What is that pie? Anyway, it's not going to be all shits and giggles. It's going to be something there that we have to be in service to again. So I want that.
Well, it's like Ken Wilber says, no matter how enlightened you might be, everybody's born at 0.
Mm-hmm.
And something can, quote, go wrong at any time in that developmental trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
So that may be what we talk about. But
okay,
when we get there, I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah.
And one of the things that Hubel says in this book is, I never heard this expressed quite this way. He says the two fundamental energetic drives of human beings are fear and curiosity. And he says fear is the energy to pull inward, and curiosity is the energy to push outward. And he talks about it in the context of attachment, the process of attachment of an infant to the mother or the principal caregiver, and how curiosity is that drive that drives the infant to explore the world, and that fear is whenever something might go wrong, to go back to the parental safety zone. But he said that's where we learn that tension between curiosity. So if he's accurate, and I think he is, then there will never be a time when there won't be any human beings curious about the future, curious about possibilities. Even if many of us are hunkered down in fear, which is what's happening right now, there's a lot of fear going on and people becoming very, very hunkered down, very insular. But at the same time, there's this article I read today, there's this ginormous amount of friction, and friction is what drives curiosity. It's like, what is that all about? Why is that happening? What can we do here? What is there a better way to do this? That's also part of our drive. And a lot of what we do in accountability is help us identify the fears that come from unresolved trauma, so that we're free to ask ourselves, what do we want, which is an expression of curiosity.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that fits the accountability process to a T.
Yeah.
One of the things I do when I'm facilitating, what I intentionally do is create the space and the safety for people to inquire, to ask questions without feeling afraid of being ridiculed or told they're stupid or they should know the answer to it. Yeah, I agree.
That helped me understand, put in a different context, perhaps what I've come to see is the fundamental, the second prong of the two prongs of accountability. How am I feeling? What do I want? How am I feeling puts me in touch with whatever particularly subconscious energies are manifesting themselves. And what do I want is establishing a new reality, if that's what I want, using that contact with my emotional truth. And for me, that's this idea of curiosity fits like, well, that is a curious thing. What do I want? That presumes no answer until the answer comes.
Right. And in the accountability process, one of the things I see that is peculiar to the accountability process is that I'll own a character defect or a behavior that is a result of the alignment with childhood trauma. So if I say arrogant, and I say the word I'm arrogant, that's in alignment with a certain aspect of that trauma that told me arrogance is a good way to keep people away from me, if knowing that people hurt, all subconsciously. So when the feeling happens, it's specific to that vibration, arrogant. I could say mean, that's a different vibration. I could say needy, that's another vibration. And when I say the truth, the feeling tone of that truth is specific to the outcome or the behavior that I find myself in, the pattern of destructiveness, or the obsessive pattern, or the pattern that I can't seem to get out of, specific to that one aspect of it. So if I say I'm needy and I take a breath and I feel that, and there's a constellation of things that come to me, not so many pictures or words, but feeling tones, and maybe some incidences when I was younger, that when I say it is my intent to be confident, it is specific to that neediness vibration. If I say I'm a mean dad, which is one of my statements, what I want is specific to my children, my relationship to my children. So my intent was to become a loving, caring, nurturing father. If it's that's one of the aspects of the accountability process that I'm getting affirmed in, that how I see it time after time when I see it happen in other people. It's specific to a set of traumas. There's not just one trauma, but there's a constellation of things that created arrogance, or that created neediness, or that created control, or created meanness. And that feeling and I want comes specific to that vibration, that specific vibration. I don't know if that helped or confused things more.
Well, no, what I'm hearing you say is that, and this has been my experience doing accountability, that all of these, all of our experience is specific to something that's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a theoretical thing. It's oftentimes, I've seen you do this, and I've done this too as a facilitator, is that when someone's struggling with an energetic / critical experience, so I'm feeling something and my mind is making a critical comment, or this criticism is riding on a feeling.
Right.
I've seen you ask people, so can you remember the first time you felt that?
Yeah.
So if someone's having a hard time identifying what's going on with herself or himself in the moment, that's an avenue toward, it doesn't really matter what the first time the person experienced that was. What matters is getting in touch with it,
right,
allowing it to present itself in the present moment, in the body. And so it's just so yes, it's all specific. And my experience is, once I've gotten in touch with that and I'm able to sit with it, when I go to the question, what do I want? I have no preconceived notion of what I'm supposed to say.
Right.
Even if I'm focused on my relationship with my children or whatever, I still don't know what's going to come up.
Right.
I mean, I want to be a good dad, I would suggest probably surface itself as you are in the inquiry.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, my loving, caring, nurturing dad. I'm drawing a blank here, Marty.
So I'm just suggesting that when you confronted that feeling, I'm a bad dad, mean dad, whatever it was, that when you ask yourself what you wanted, that information came spontaneously.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, it came from the original essence of who I am.
Right.
That's always been there, and that I can tap into. When I tap into that subconscious trauma, that subconscious place is also the place I connect to the source energy or knowingness that I have internally. That's always been there.
Right. Yeah,
So this practice, go ahead.
I've heard you use the term source energy, and that was what jumped into my mind before you said the word, as you were
Yeah,
just explaining your process.
the accountability process. When I first got into recovery, I was hearing people who had some time saying, "I'm a grateful alcoholic." Well, they were. What I come to understand is they're grateful because it allowed them to stop and take a look and ask a question, like, this is not working. And people who are doing what our culture says is appropriate, why would they stop? Even if they find themselves in patterns of behavior that are destructive or causing pain or causing separation, if they're doing what this society says they should do, then they should just figure it out, or fix it and move on and get on with their lives and be successful or make the money or have the good looking wife or have the good looking partner, whatever they believe is what they should be doing according to our cultural conditioning, instead of living a authentic life. It's like most people don't even know that. Like, what do you mean? I'm doing okay. I got a good job. I'm still married. There's some problems, and the person sitting in a treatment center after 3 DUIs, maybe a suicide attempt, and 5 different other treatment centers, and they're saying, "I got it. Yeah, I know. I just got to keep my job." So going into this trauma, this subconscious pool of information, is actually the spirituality of life that we're missing. It's like the 12 steps. They say it's a spiritual program, which turns a lot of people off, because their concept of spirituality was whatever their parents believed and whatever punishment came to them for whatever wrong thing they did, according to whatever the dogma was of the particular teaching. So they don't want to be spiritual, because spiritual is equated to punishment or hell or I did it wrong, when spiritual is actually access to this place of peace and knowingness, and it's inside you. It had nothing to do with stuff outside of you. Stuff outside of you can stay the same, no change whatsoever, and your perception shift in a way to where you're experiencing peace in the middle of what you thought was untenable. And Christ referred to it as be in the world, not of it, or be of the world. I forget how that goes, but
You had it in the world, not of it.
In the world, not of it. So I find myself in the world, and I'm not participating in the chaos. I'm not, and actually, I don't see what the other people are seeing. I know that what their perception is correct. The political system is polarized. There's 2 camps, and everybody's pointing their fingers at the other camp, and it's their fault. I see that, but I also see people who have been abused or looking for something, looking for a way to belong, or looking for safety the only way they know how to do it, because they believe somebody's going to take their stuff. And I want to offer they're correct, because the other people are coming from lack, they're coming from lack. They don't believe there's enough, so I got to hold on to mine. And the other people actually are trying to take their stuff because they're coming from lack, so it makes sense to them. And I just don't see that. I see that and more.
Well, you can see how the COVID situation just exacerbated that polarity.
Yes.
Because it created a whole new level of fear that was universal. It wasn't endemic to one quote side or the other, end
Right.
quote. It was for all of us, and yet we able to use it to fuel our own fears of so our side's handling this COVID better than your side.
Right. Yeah. So, and they both believe they're right. And,
right.
They both want freedom and to live their own lives. It's really convoluted.
I think I shared with you a couple of weeks ago on this podcast, and I was talking to one of our colleagues about I had the insight that the most political thing I could do is do my accountability work.
Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, there's 2 points. One is the point that you just made, which is that the external circumstances don't have to change and won't change, but my perception of them will.
Yes.
And I also characterize that as so my relationship with those external circumstances changes.
Yes.
And I'm moving from separation to embrace.
Right.
So that allows me to do what I heard you just do, which is to see the psychodynamics driving all of us. Universal human psychodynamics split into tribes because for most of our history we were in tribes, so that tribal energy is ancient and still present. But it also allows me to let people off the hook, to let myself off the hook. It's like, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. If I'm not aware that I'm acting out of compulsions that are driven by fear, then my behavior is going to seem totally normal. And the behavior of people who behave like me will seem like the appropriate thing. And the opposite will also be true.
Mm-hmm.
And so my challenge in the time of turmoil is to continue to notice how I feel. When a judgment arises, those guys don't know what they're doing, or those guys are acting in reprehensible ways, to notice how much of that is a projection. So I'm being reprehensible, or I've been reprehensible, and own, just again, go through the process. What feeling does that bring up? And then what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of having done this work now for some time, we talked about this last week, I've felt a shift in all of that. It's a remarkable experience to feel shift that arises in such that a way that I would have responded to any given incident is not the way I respond anymore. There's
Right.
a new natural, if you will.
Right. Yeah, I refer to it as the edge has been taken off. I'm more willing to listen to somebody with a opposite or different point of view than to shout them down in a what I would call, what I used to call conversation, who can talk the loudest and get their point. So I have the capacity to listen. I had something, I lost it, but I'll get it back.
It's there.
Yeah. Oh, the great minds of our time were asked, what are the solution to the global dilemmas? And I can ask that question about what's the solution to the national dilemma. And their one-word answer, and now that it would be my answer also, is dialogue. Is for us to sit down and dialogue, to talk to each other, get to know each other. I've worked in the institution for 20 years, and there were—
By that you mean the jails.
The jails and prison system.
Right.
And most people were surprised, and a lot of people grateful that I had the wherewithal to go in there and talk and teach. What I found out is that they're no different than me, except for the grace of God. I'm sitting in one of those places and somebody else is coming in talking to me. They're intelligent, they're compassionate, they're people struggling, and they've been misinformed, and were doing the best they could to get through their life based on their either cultural or family dynamics. And talking to them, listening to them, offered them options other than recidivism, going in and out of jail for the rest of their lives. They call it doing life on the installment plan. And knowing that they can make a difference by just being who they are, not being somebody they don't want to be. I don't know if that made any sense, but dialogue. I was at a demonstration several years ago when George W. Bush was in office, and they had a painting in the Justice Department's cafeteria that was hanging on the wall. And it was of George Bush. His face was painted like a flag, and his head was like going down a toilet. So the conservatives wanted the painting taken down because it was offensive, and the liberals wanted to keep it up for freedom of speech. And so they had a demonstration out in front of the Justice Department, which is, this is just ironic. And the people on the left were on the left-hand side of the door, and the people on the right were on the right-hand side of the door. And I got there, and they were yelling at each other. And it boiled, I could paraphrase it, "You're stupid, no, you're stupid, no, you're stupid." And they were seeing who could yell the loudest. And a woman from, I happened to be on standing on the left side, and a woman from the conservative side came up and yelled at us that we were, I forget what she said we were, but she had 2 sons in Afghanistan at the time. And they're giving their all for the United States, and we're over here, you know, doing our liberal thing, and we should know better. And my thought was, Marty, to go to what I could see the leaders of the left side and ask them to create a circle, to circle up and invite that woman over and listen to her and just hold her in a space of, and I didn't do it. And if I find myself at a place like that, a demonstration, my goal will be to connect to the other side, to connect to those people who are in appearances diametrically opposed to my point of view or my position, and talk. If I would have had the, I want to say, courage or the willingness to do that, there could have been a healing there that, I don't know. So, well, what was it? About a year ago, I called you up and said, can you talk to me about Trump and Republicans, because there's something I don't know. I mean, half of the United States, they're not all what I was told they were. So, and I know you. It's like, okay, this is not connecting here. So tell me what I don't know. I believe that was my question. What is it I don't know about what's going on? And we had a dialogue, and oh my God, wow. There were so many things that I was biased on that I couldn't see. And our conversation opened me up to a more, I don't even know how to say where I am. It's not central, it's not left, it's not right. It's for integration, it's for people, it's for organization. Because I'm a Gandhi type. If it were up to me and everybody was like me, we'd all be out hugging each other, and nobody be doing the work, the technical work, because we'd all be like jumping around. And so I need that aspect of society to create a space for where I can do my work. And the work I do helps ease or gives people some reason maybe to continue doing what they're doing. And nobody's wrong and nobody's right, and everybody fits and belongs. And we move on, we move forward together. It seems idealistic, but that's just the way I am, idealistic. So, but I can't do this alone.
That's partly what I love about you, John. But I was thinking about how do we help people access this dynamic on a civic or political level. And one of the things, so in accountability, I'm taught to own my own projections. So I thought we could sit in the room and I could ask somebody, so were you willing to say, I am Donald Trump? Or wow. If you lean in the other direction, I'm Nancy Pelosi.
Or Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, whoever it is that you think is the the bad guy politically? Would you be willing to say, I am that person, and then just see what happens? See what comes up. And using the power of the accountability practice to create something that's intentional rather than compulsive.
Right.
Because chances are that the dynamic works on a micro and a macro level. If I'm triggered, it doesn't matter the source of the trigger.
No.
It's about me. So if I'm enraged about Donald Trump, what is it about me that I'm not seeing?
Right. Or if I'm scared of Bernie Sanders giving all my money away, and I call him whatever my name is, whatever I project onto him, and I say it comes with I am Bernie Sanders or I am Donald Trump. The whole projection is right there, and there's aspects of both of those men that are part of the human condition. They're not. They don't both have to be right. There's a balance. There's a balance that happens, and I believe the balance in the conservative liberal side has happened before a long time ago. I don't know how long ago it actually really worked, but in the past, I don't know, what do you think, 50 years, it's turned into the polarization scary place.
Well, the irony is it worked more when we had a common enemy.
Yeah.
And while that enemy was real, there was also a lot of projection going on.
Right.
And so, you know, I don't know that it really matters. What matters is how do we access the hidden truth? And ultimately, we're going to learn to do this as a society and not just as a bunch of individuals. But we got to start with the individual and do this accountability work. As you know, I'm writing a book, and I'm coming to that chapter soon about accountability on a mass basis. What would that look like? How would that work? Because my thesis is that accountability is a universal process for all human beings and not just one human being. That we have a collective want, and that all we need to do is look around the world and see what we have, and that's what we collectively want. And the question is, how do we access that truth in the process, the emotional truth? Now, maybe dialogue is the one way to begin to do that. So if you had gotten that woman with the kids in Afghanistan in the circle, perhaps it could have created, like we do in an accountability practice group, it could have created a collective resonance as truth started to be told individually. That truth also resonates through not just the vagal nerve reality, but also through the fact that we're all come from source energy. Those invisible means of communication would be activated, so that there could be, even if it's for a brief moment, as we know in the accountability practice, even a moment of shift changes the subconscious information database. And that begins to loosen up the compulsion and deepen my contact with intentionality.
Yeah, it heals the trauma that's stuck in the subconscious, motivating the patterns of behavior, whatever they might be, destructive patterns of behavior. And in the accountability process, it's like taking the edge off of the trauma. And the more I do the accountability, the trauma seems to wane. And what's left is copious amounts of concern for my well-being, my daughter's well-being, my grandson, and then the society they're growing up in, and how can I be of service to create a world that's safe for them.
Yeah. I was thinking that at the very beginning of our conversation today about intention at a macro level, something like, I intend to create a world where we all love and accept ourselves just the way we are.
Yeah.
The world of loving possibility.
Yeah. It opens up the options of how we want to spend our time. And the one concept, the concept of lack, I think is, I know that I'm enough and I have enough, and that I will be supported in this journey adequately, so that I can continue to affect as many people as possible, or offer the information to as many people as possible. I am taken care of. It's like I know that, and I could actually go anywhere, pretty much in the United States, or because I know that people love me. So I even if I did lose everything, I would still have everything I needed. It's really incredible.
Well, and I think that, again, for the newcomer who's listening to us, I would assert for myself that that can't happen until I've started to learn to love myself.
Right.
And accountability practice has so many tools for self-acceptance. And it took a long time. And there's probably still parts of me that I don't like. They're probably still hidden in there. I just have I have new tools to befriend those parts of me. So I want them to show up. I want to befriend them.
Yeah.
I want them to presence themselves. I don't want them to feel the need to hide.
Right.
In the dark places.
Yeah, in the shadows.
I want them to feel free. It may be a little tough to love them when I first meet them, but I'm committed to it. I intend to love and accept myself just the way I am, can have no asterisk.
Right. No exception.
Exactly. So I appreciate this time, John. Appreciate your willingness to help us ask these greater and greater questions, because we are not only individuals living in our individual families and communities, but we are also citizens. We're citizens of this country, and we're citizens of this world simultaneously.
Yes.
Individual and part of the whole at the same time. And I do believe that the principles that you've taught us will serve us all, and not just us individually, over time, as we deepen our experience with it, trial and error, seeing what works, jettisoning that which does not, allowing source energy to show us new ways, and see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you.
So as always, thank you, John. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to another conversation.
Yeah, me too, Marty. Thank you so much.
All right.